The static crackled through the nursery monitor at 3:17 a.m. A harsh whisper that pulled Sarah from the edge of sleep. She rolled toward the glowing green numbers on her nightstand, squinting at the receiver that sat like a digital sentinel beside their bed. The nursery was silent now, save for the soft breathing of their 6-month-old daughter, Emma, the rhythmic sound that had become the soundtrack to their fractured sleep patterns. But something else lingered in the white noise, a subtle shift in the audio landscape that made the mother's skin prickle with unease. Michael stirred beside her, his arm thrown across his eyes to block the pale light filtering through their bedroom curtains. The software engineer had been pulling late nights debugging code for the past month, and exhaustion clung to him like a second skin. Sarah reached for the monitor, turning up the volume slightly, straining to identify what had disturbed her rest. Through the speaker came Emma's gentle sighs, the occasional rustle of her sleep sack against the crib mattress, and underneath it all, a sound that shouldn't have been there, the faint whisper of movement across hardwood floors. The new mother pushed herself upright, bare feet, finding the cold floor as she crept toward the nursery door. Their Victorian house had been a dream purchase 18 months ago, all original hardwood and crown molding, but now every creak and groan of the century-old structure seemed ominous in the pre-dawn hours. The hallway stretched before her, illuminated only by the soft glow of Emma's nightlight, bleeding under the nursery door. Sarah pressed her ear to the wood, listening for any sign of disturbance within. Silence, complete and absolute. She eased the door open, wincing as the hinges released their familiar protest. Emma lay peacefully in her crib, tiny fists curled beside her face, dark hair splayed across the organic cotton sheets. The mobile above her crib hung motionless, its woodland creatures casting gentle shadows in the amber glow of the nightlight. Everything appeared exactly as they had left it, after the 11 p.m. feeding, yet something felt wrong, a displacement in the air itself, as if someone had recently passed through the room. Sarah approached the crib, reaching down to adjust Emma's blanket, when movement caught her peripheral vision. In the corner where they had positioned the baby monitor's camera, a shadow seemed to shift, not the gradual movement of tree branches beyond the window, but something more deliberate, more purposeful. The young mother turned sharply, eyes scanning the corner, but found only the familiar furniture and toys arranged exactly as always. The monitor's red recording light blinked steadily, its lens focused on the crib, with mechanical indifference. Sarah had insisted on the top-of-the-line model, complete with night vision and smartphone connectivity, after reading too many parenting forums about the importance of monitoring infant sleep patterns. Now she wondered if the constant surveillance had made her paranoid, seeing threats where none existed. Back in their bedroom, Michael was awake, propped against the headboard with the monitor's parent unit in his hands. "Everything," he whispered, studying the grainy green-tinted image on the small screen. Emma remained peacefully asleep, unaware of her mother's nighttime vigil. "I thought I heard something," Sarah said, sliding back under the covers. "Just the house settling." Probably. But sleep eluded her for the remainder of the night. Each time she closed her eyes, that sense of wrongness returned, a persistent feeling that something had been in Emma's room, something that didn't belong. By morning, rationality had reasserted itself. New mothers were notorious for their hypervigilance, she reminded herself. Sleep deprivation could play tricks on the mind, making shadows seem like intruders, and normal house sounds feel threatening. The next evening brought no relief. At 2:43 a.m., the monitor erupted with a sound that sent both parents bolting upright. Not static this time, but a clear, unmistakable noise, the soft scrape of something being dragged across the nursery floor. Michael grabbed the receiver, stabbing at buttons to increase the volume, while Sarah was already halfway down the hall. The nursery door stood slightly ajar, though she distinctly remembered closing it completely. Emma slept undisturbed, but her wooden toy chest had been moved. The painted box, normally positioned against the far wall, now sat several feet closer to the crib. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as she noticed dark scuff marks on the hardwood where the chest had been dragged. "Michael," she called, her voice tight with fear. The father appeared in the doorway, still clutching the monitor, his face pale in the nightlight's glow. "Jesus," he breathed, seeing the displaced furniture. "How did that happen?" They stood in the nursery for 20 minutes, searching for logical explanation. Could the chest have somehow shifted on its own? The house was old. Perhaps the floors weren't completely level, but the scuff marks told a different story. Clear evidence that something had deliberately moved the heavy wooden box across the room toward their sleeping daughter. The following day, Michael installed additional security cameras throughout the house, focusing particularly on the nursery and hallway. If someone was somehow getting into their home, they would capture evidence. The software engineer's methodical approach to problem solving demanded concrete data, not shadowy impressions and inexplicable sounds. 3 nights of uneventful recordings lulled them into a false sense of security. Emma slept peacefully, the nursery remained undisturbed, and life began to feel normal again. Sarah even managed to laugh about their paranoid overreaction during a playdate with other neighborhood mothers. "New parent syndrome," explained Jennifer from 2 houses down, whose own daughter was now a rambunctious toddler. "We all go through it. You start seeing danger everywhere." But on Thursday night, the shadow returned. Sarah noticed it first, on the smartphone app that connected to their monitoring system. Unable to sleep, she had been mindlessly scrolling through social media when she decided to check on Emma. The night vision camera showed the familiar view of the crib, but something was wrong with the image quality in the corner of the frame. What should have been empty space appeared filled with a darkness that seemed to move independent of any external light source. The concerned mother stared at the screen, willing the image to resolve into something recognizable. Tree branches, a trick of the camera's infrared sensors, anything but what her mind was beginning to accept, that something was standing in Emma's room. She watched in growing horror as the shadow appeared to turn toward the crib, not merely shift or sway, but deliberately rotate with what could only be described as intent. The darkness seemed to pulse with its own rhythm, expanding and contracting like a thing that breathed. Emma remained asleep, unaware that something impossible lurked mere feet away. Sarah's scream brought Michael running from his home office, where he had been working late. She thrust the phone at him, finger jabbing at the screen, but by the time he focused on the image, the corner showed nothing but empty space. The timestamp indicated only seconds had passed, yet the shadow had vanished as if it had never existed. "Play it back," Michael demanded, his skepticism warring with the terror in his wife's eyes. But the cloud-based recording system showed no anomalies. The footage revealed only Emma sleeping peacefully through the night, with no signs of any presence in the room. The technology professionals spent the following day analyzing their security system, checking for glitches, interference, or any technical explanation for what Sarah claimed to have witnessed. The cameras were functioning perfectly, the infrared sensors calibrated correctly, and the recording quality remained consistent throughout the night. Yet something was appearing in their daughter's room, something that the equipment seemed unable or unwilling to document. Friday brought a new development that changed everything. Sarah was folding laundry in the nursery while Emma napped when she noticed something peculiar about the baby monitor's positioning. The camera, which they had carefully angled to provide optimal viewing of the crib, had been turned approximately 30 degrees to the left, not knocked askew by accident, but deliberately repositioned to focus on the corner where the shadow had appeared. More disturbing still, when she checked the smartphone app's live feed, the image showed a perfect view of that same corner, as if someone wanted them to witness whatever manifested there. Sarah quickly repositioned the camera back toward the crib, but a cold certainty settled over her. They were not alone in the house, and whatever shared their space possessed enough intelligence to manipulate their own surveillance equipment. That evening, they placed Emma's portable crib in their bedroom, unwilling to leave her alone in the nursery. The parents took turns sleeping, one always awake to watch the monitors, and maintain vigil over their daughter. The arrangement should have provided comfort, but instead amplified their anxiety. If something could manipulate their cameras and move furniture, what else might it be capable of? At 1:15 a.m., the nursery camera activated its motion detection alert, sending a notification to both of their phones despite the room being supposedly empty. Michael pulled up the live feed, expecting to see a cat that had somehow gotten inside, or perhaps a large moth, triggering the sensors. Instead, the night vision revealed the rocking chair moving back and forth with steady rhythmic motions. The antique chair had belonged to Sarah's grandmother, a family heirloom that had comforted 3 generations of mothers during countless late-night feeding. Now it swayed with mechanical precision, as if an invisible occupant had settled in for a long wait. The couple watched in stunned silence as the chair maintained its gentle rhythm for over an hour before gradually slowing to a stop. "We're calling the police," Sarah whispered, though even as she spoke the words, she knew how the conversation would unfold. Officers would find no signs of forced entry, no evidence of an intruder, nothing but the testimony of 2 sleep-deprived parents who claimed their baby monitor was detecting ghosts. Michael had reached a different conclusion. Years of debugging complex systems had taught him that when technology behaved inexplicably, the problem usually lay with the technology itself. "I'm calling the manufacturer in the morning," he said. "There has to be a logical explanation. Maybe electromagnetic interference from the electrical system, or a software bug causing false motion detection." But Sunday morning brought evidence that shattered any hope of a technical solution. Sarah discovered a photograph tucked beneath Emma's mattress, an old Polaroid that depicted their nursery exactly as it appeared now, complete with the same furniture arrangement and decorations they had chosen. The image was faded and yellowed with age, suggesting it had been taken decades earlier, yet it showed their daughter's room in impossible detail. On the back of the photograph, written in spidery handwriting that belonged to no one they knew, were the words, "She's been waiting so long." The discovery sent Sarah into a panic that bordered on hysteria. Someone had been in their house, in their daughter's room, close enough to hide a photograph beneath the mattress. The violation felt absolute and terrifying. Michael tried to maintain rational thinking, suggesting the previous homeowners might have left the image behind, but even he struggled to explain how it could show their current decorating choices. They contacted the real estate agent who had handled their purchase, demanding information about the house's history. Patricia Kelman had seemed so pleasant during their home search, cheerfully discussing the property's original Victorian charm and recent renovation. Now her voice carried a different tone when Sarah pressed for details about previous occupants. "Well," the agent said carefully, "there was some unfortunate history with the house. Nothing that legally required disclosure, you understand. Since it was so long ago, a family lived there in the 1960s. The Hendersons. They had a baby daughter who passed away from what was then called crib death. SIDS, we'd call it now." Sarah's blood turned to ice water in her veins. "What room was the nursery?" A long pause. "I believe it was the same room you're using now. The previous owners mentioned something about cold spots and strange sounds, but houses that old always have their quirks. Settling foundations, old plumbing, you know how it is." The real estate agent's casual dismissal of what others had experienced only intensified their growing dread. How many families had lived in the house since the 1960s? How many had fled after encountering the presence that seemed drawn to whatever room served as a nursery? That night, they moved Emma to a hotel, unwilling to spend another hour in the house until they could decide on a permanent solution. The baby slept peacefully in the portable crib between their hotel beds, blissfully unaware of the supernatural drama surrounding her young life. For the first time in weeks, both parents managed several hours of uninterrupted rest, but escape proved temporary. Monday evening found them back home, practical concerns overriding their fears. Michael's job required his home office setup. Emma needed her familiar feeding and sleep schedule, and hotel costs were quickly becoming prohibitive. They convinced themselves that daylight and rational planning could overcome whatever was happening in the nursery. The father spent Tuesday installing additional motion sensors, upgrading their Wi-Fi network, and positioning backup cameras throughout the house. If something was manipulating their original monitoring system, redundant surveillance would capture evidence. Sarah researched the Henderson family, discovering through online obituaries that little Margaret Henderson had died at 6 months old, exactly Emma's current age. The information should have provided closure, a logical explanation for the phenomena they were experiencing. Perhaps some kind of residual energy or electromagnetic anomaly associated with the previous tragedy. But Tuesday night brought developments that pushed their situation far beyond anything that could be explained by science or rational thought. At 11:30 p.m., every monitor in the house activated simultaneously, not motion detection alerts or audio disturbances, but live feeds showing the shadow figure in multiple locations throughout the house. The entity appeared in the nursery, the hallway, their bedroom, and the kitchen, as if it existed in several places at once or moved with impossible speed between cameras. Most terrifying of all, the figure seemed aware of their surveillance, turning toward each camera in turn as if acknowledging the watchers on the other side of the lens. In the nursery feed, the shadow approached Emma's empty crib, lingering there with what could only be interpreted as longing or loss. Sarah found herself speaking to the darkness through the monitor's two-way communication feature, her voice trembling with desperation. "What do you want? Please just tell us what you want." The response came not through the speakers but written across their bathroom mirror in condensation that shouldn't have been there, the same spidery handwriting from the photograph. "I want to hold her." The message remained visible for only moments before fading, leaving them to question whether they had imagined the entire exchange. But Michael had photographed the mirror with his phone, capturing evidence of the impossible communication. Wednesday brought a decision that felt like surrender but seemed like their only option. They would sell the house and move somewhere with no history, no shadows, no presence that yearned for their daughter. The choice felt like cowardice, but protecting Emma took precedence over pride or financial concerns. But that evening, as they began packing Emma's belongings, the baby monitor transmitted something that changed everything. Through the speaker came the sound of singing, a gentle lullaby rendered in a woman's voice that carried the weight of decades. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, filled with love and sorrow in equal measure. Emma, who had been fussy all day, immediately calmed at the sound. Her tiny face relaxed into peaceful contentment as the ethereal voice continued its song. For the first time since the phenomena began, Sarah felt something other than fear. She sensed the presence, deep, aching love for children, the maternal instinct that transcended death itself. The singing continued for nearly an hour, with Emma sleeping more peacefully than she had in weeks. When the lullaby finally faded to silence, Sarah realized that the shadow in their monitor wasn't a threat to their daughter. It was the spirit of another mother, Margaret Henderson's mother, who had been unable to let go after losing her own child. Thursday morning brought a phone call that confirmed their growing understanding. Patricia Kellman called with information she claimed to have just discovered in the real estate files. "I found some additional records about the Henderson family," the agent said. The mother, Dorothy Henderson, went into severe depression after losing baby Margaret. She died by suicide 6 months later in that same nursery, unable to cope with her grief. The pieces of the puzzle finally assembled into a heartbreaking picture. Dorothy Henderson's spirit had remained in the house for over 60 years, drawn to any nursery established in the room where she had lost everything. The shadow figure wasn't malevolent. It was a bereaved mother desperate to nurture and protect the children who came after her own. That evening, Sarah sat in the nursery's rocking chair with Emma, speaking aloud to the presence she now understood haunted their home. "I know you miss her," she said to the empty room. "I know you want to help to hold babies again, but you're scaring us, and that's not good for Emma." The temperature in the room dropped perceptibly, and the baby monitor's screen flickered. Then, clear as day, came Dorothy's voice through the speaker. "I'm sorry. I just miss her so much. It's been so long since I held a baby." The conversation that followed was impossible and real. A dialogue between two mothers separated by decades but united in their love for their children. Dorothy explained how she had tried to communicate, how she moved the toy chest to create a better view of Emma, how she repositioned the camera to show herself more clearly. She had been trying to help to watch over the baby during the long night hours, but her presence had been interpreted as threatening. "I don't want to frighten you," the spirit continued. "I just wanted to be near her, to sing the lullabies I never got to finish for Margaret." Sarah found herself crying, overwhelmed by the profound sadness radiating from the grieving mother's spirit. "You can stay," she whispered. "You can watch over her, sing to her, but no more moving things, no more scaring us. Can you do that?" The monitor crackled with what sounded like relieved sobbing. Yes, I can do that. Thank you for letting me stay near her." From that night forward, the phenomena in the house took on a different character entirely. The shadow figure still appeared in the nursery, but now Sarah and Michael welcomed its presence. Dorothy Henderson's spirit became an invisible guardian, singing lullabies during difficult nights and maintaining a protective watch over Emma's sleep. The baby monitor became a bridge between worlds, allowing the living and the dead to coexist in an arrangement that brought peace to all involved. Emma thrived under the dual protection of her parents and her ghostly caretaker, sleeping through the night and developing faster than expected. Months later, when friends asked about their beautiful Victorian home, and whether they experienced any supernatural activity, Sarah and Michael would smile and deflect. How could they explain that their daughter was being lovingly watched over by the spirit of a mother who had lost her own child 60 years ago? How could they describe the comfort they found in knowing that Emma was never truly alone, even when they slept? The shadow in the baby monitor had transformed from a source of terror into a blessing, proof that love transcends death, that maternal instincts echo across generations, and that sometimes the most frightening apparitions are simply souls seeking the chance to love again. In the Victorian house on Maple Street, two mothers from different eras shared the sacred duty of protecting one precious child, connected by technology that had accidentally bridged the gap between life and whatever comes after. Dorothy Henderson had finally found peace, not in moving on to whatever waited beyond, but in being allowed to express her maternal love once more. And Sarah and Michael had discovered that sometimes the things we fear most in the darkness are simply other hearts, broken by loss, reaching out for the healing power of connection and purpose. The baby monitor continued to transmit its gentle surveillance, but now the static occasionally carried whispered lullabies, and the shadows dancing across the screen spelled out messages of love and protection. Emma grew surrounded by twice the devotion, watched over by both the living and the dead, in a house where the boundaries between worlds had become beautifully blurred.